give you a little history. So I've been making biodiesel for about 5 years, and mostly in my garage. And about a year ago, I was talking to a friend of mine, whose name is Harry. Oh, we got a dog in the audience, right? And by the way, in case this is not the kind of presentation you're interested in, our co-op is still basically informal. We're not a legal business structure. So if you're looking for that kind of stuff, you know, you're probably not going to get it here. Our co-op is more of an experiment, and in probably 6 months or so, we're going to decide if we want to take it to more of a formal structure. So I just want to preface it with that. So I was talking to a friend of mine, Harry, and about just kind of wanting to get out of my garage and do something a little bit more community-oriented. And I had been to a Girl Mark Advanced Homebrewing Workshop a couple years ago, and there were a couple guys there that had some fuel that was made from one of these BioPro automated processors. And the guy who invented the flip test that a lot of people are using, Randall von Weddell, was there. And they did a flip test with his fuel, and he said he'd never seen homebrew fuel that tested that well. So it kind of piqued my interest in this machine. And when I was talking to Harry about how to form a co-op, you know, I was talking about the machine. I was kind of lusting after this thing. And I mean, in a lot of ways, our situation is very unusual because he said, well, all right, I'll just buy it. So, you know, he had some money that he'd made from real estate, and so he said, you know, I'll buy the machine to help get this co-op going. I don't want to be paid back. You know, it's just basically a gift to the co-op. And so that was our beginning. We bought the machine. We really didn't even have a space when we first got it. Turned out that a friend of ours has a shop nearby in the same neighborhood. We're in the Madrona neighborhood of Seattle, which is this neat little community on top of a hill overlooking Lake Washington. And so a friend of ours had this shop space that he used for just odd jobs, some woodworking, some metalworking, which we obviously keep separate now with our methanol. But he offered us the space, and in return we give him free fuel. So for a while we were keeping track of our electricity and water and trying to just pay him, but it's turned out that just offering him free fuel has been working. So the beginning of this thing was Harry and I, and then Harry's friend Judy started talking about how to organize this thing. And one of the things that we thought about would really make it easier would be to have people bring oil. So anyway, I'm going to, is it this one? Must be.
The other one, left mouse. Left mouse.
Left?
Left.
Oh. Oh, what did I do? Oh, God. I should just use the computer. Anyway, I'll just talk. I'll grade in place with that. So, so we got our machine. We found a place to put it, and we thought about the structure. So we thought, well, let's use a bring your own oil model, because in our area, it's gotten pretty hard to find the oil. There's a couple of companies, one primarily that has been really aggressive in going after the oil. They have like a team of people that they pay to sign up restaurants. So we thought if we have the members of our co-op, their main job be to find the oil and bring it to the co-op, then that would take care of that part of it. The other thing that we do to make things a little easier is that we all ask the restaurants to put the oil into 5-gallon buckets or the 5-gallon jugs that the fresh oil comes in, so that nobody has to pump from some stinky drum. I've had some bad experiences with getting oil. Thank you. Left button. Okay, thank you. I've had some bad experiences trying to pump from drums. In the summertime, you know, they're sitting, getting hot and building up their free fatty acid level. And you know, in Seattle it kind of rains a lot, so we get water in the drums, and you have to de-water a whole lot. So it's been a lot easier for us to have the restaurants put it into the buckets or the jugs. We give them a funnel, or we just give them clean buckets to put it in, and that's worked well. So, So that's the main job. So people to join our co-op, they pay just $50, just one-time thing to join. And then we did apply for a methanol permit, and that cost another $150. The way it works in Seattle was we had to go through the fire department to get that permit. So they came out and looked at our setup. They really liked the BioPro. They thought it was nice setup. And the only thing they asked us in terms of the methanol was to take the pump out of the drum when we weren't actually pumping and just put the bung lids back on so it's a bit safer. So that's really all they asked. And otherwise we were, yeah.
I'd just like to say you got a great fire department there. Yeah. Because I've got a 7-page letter from Santa Ana Fire Department citing code violations for a guy who was producing that they caught on to.
Well, yeah, I mean, some of it may be because we're zoned mixed use. The owner of the shop had already gotten permits for other things, you know, flammables and stuff like that. So I don't know if it was his relationship with them, but I mean, I think there's a lot of support in the Seattle area for the kind of thing that we're doing. Another example of that is the state legislature passed a bill last session saying that we don't have to pay road tax, that biodiesel made from waste vegetable oil for personal use is not subject to road tax. So, and it passed, I think either unanimously or maybe there was one vote against. So, pretty positive environment for what we're doing. So, you know, with the price of fuel in our area, commercial biodiesel's gone up to, it's like $5.50 a gallon. We're feeling really good. We're getting all the oil from, well, not all of it, but almost all the oil from the local restaurants right near where our processor is. And then, you know, it's great to work through the members of the co-op. We've got 24 members right now. And, you know, they're going through their connections of people they know who own restaurants, you know, places near where they live or work. And so we are bringing in enough oil to supply the members. About 100 to 150 gallons a week is what we're doing, which is about the capacity of the machine. The machine that the BioPro uses does 50 gallons at a time. Every 48 hours we can do a new batch. So we're pretty much doing 150 gallons a week, having it running all the time. So we're all feeling really good about, you know, basically a sustainable source of fuel. Probably about the most sustainable. I'm just going to use this. Just use the arrow. So I'm going to make a little plug for the BioPro. I have to say that I'm not totally objective anymore because in the November or so I became the Seattle rep for the thing. So I'm not totally objective, but I really feel like it's facilitated the co-op in a lot of ways because it's very easy to use. It makes good fuel on a consistent basis. We've had our fuel tested. We kind of got lucky with the testing. They started a program in Washington State where they're testing all the fuel being sold at commercial pumps because there have been so many, you know, quality control problems. And I knew the folks that were starting that program, and I just asked them if they'd be willing to test our total glycerin just to make sure we're making, you know, decent quality fuel. And they said, oh, well, we'll do the whole thing. You know, so they gave us a whole ASTM test, and we were really, really happy because it passed on all the tests. We only done that once. We did have another just total glycerin analysis, which also passed. So we're feeling like we're making good quality fuel. But it, you know, it doesn't take up a lot of space. It's easy to train other people how to use it, and a couple other things.
Why was that unit on wheels?
It does have wheels in the back of the machine. Actually, it's not made with the wheels anymore, which I kind of wish it was. But I guess there were some liability issues with people. One guy almost hurt himself trying to wheel it around. It does weigh like 350 pounds, so if one person is trying to wheel it around, it can be a little hard. But anyway, I'm sure you can put wheels on it, yeah.
Do your members each come in and make their own, or do you have certain people to do it?
Yeah, so we have brewmeisters. There are 4 or 5 of us now. I started out where I did it all for a while and then just started training other people. So we've got 4 or 5 people, and the way we work is, okay, so we have a bank account set up in the name of the co-op, It's just kind of a club account, so it's not a formal business. And that's run by Judy, who has another business, so we all feel confident that she's handling the books fine. So the brewmeister actually gets paid 75 cents a gallon for their time to make fuel for the co-op. And then they also get the incentive of being able to buy fuel for $1 a gallon while they are the brewmeister. So, so that's how we do that. We figure our cost in chemicals is about $1 a gallon, so they're essentially getting their fuel at cost while they're the brewmeister. So that's worked really well. We're using a Google Calendar to keep track of, make sure that all the the schedule for producing is covered. And so,
Wow.
yeah.
To follow up, what are you guys charging your members now at the brewmasters?
Oh yeah. So if folks have oil credit, so the way it works is people bring in their oil. Can't really see it. We've got this jug with gallon markers on the side. So people, the members of the co-op get keys to the room where they can drop off their oil. It's actually the bathroom of this real estate building. So they can go to the bathroom too. They drop off their oil. They estimate how much they've dropped off. They write it on the log sheet. So then they add it to their oil credit. So you can see like, this person's only got 13 gallons of credit. And then if they have 13 gallons of oil credit, then they can buy, it entitles them to buy 13 gallons of biodiesel for $3 a gallon. If they don't have oil credit, then it's $4 a gallon. So it's a little bit of a built-in incentive to bring in oil.
Oh, so that the credit is per gallon that you bring in?
It's per gallon that you bring in.
Okay.
So you can see some people have lots of oil credit. The guy at the top there, 274 gallons of oil credit. So that for some reason they're bringing in tons of oil, but they're hardly using any biodiesel, which is great for the co-op. And so in terms of the oil issue, because, yeah.
Do you ever allow people to get more than $1 worth of credit per gallon? Like, could that guy say, can I give you 4 gallons of oil for 1 gallon of biodiesel?
We haven't done that, but we're starting to think that we should have some kind of system like that, or maybe, for the people who are having trouble bringing in oil, maybe we could have like some kind of oil sharing or buying or something system, but we haven't really tried to implement that. What we do is when people are having trouble finding oil, then we just try to, we try to get them more restaurants to pick up from, or at least one restaurant to pick up from. We have this one woman, Kathleen, who has gotten incredibly good at talking the restaurants into giving her oil. She started out, she actually ended up buying her own BioPro. She's got a business. She uses a fair amount of fuel. But she started out being pretty frustrated trying to find oil, just being rejected time after time. And then she just kind of learned how to do it and how to just kind of wear down these restaurant owners and bring in groups of friends to have lunch and dinner. And so now our co-op has, about once a month, we go out to eat at one of the restaurants that we're getting oil from to show them that we're supporting them. And now she must have like a dozen restaurants. She just has gotten really good. So whenever somebody in our co-op is low, is having trouble bringing in oil, we just call Kathleen or send her an email and say, hey, you got a restaurant you can hand over to so-and-so. Yeah.
Are you going to talk about how people keep their equipment and work areas clean?
Sure. Well, it's only, everything is in the shop. And some of us are neater than others. I'm not one of the neater ones, but some of the brewmeisters do a better job of keeping things clean. We're pretty, we're keeping things pretty tidy. So what happens is people drop off the oil on the shelves in the bathroom. That room also has the pump with the finished fuel, so they can drive up next to the bathroom, and there's a hand crank pump so they can fill up their car. So then the brewmeister only the brewmeisters have a key to the shop. The guy who owns the shop didn't want to have everybody have a key to the shop because he's got tools and stuff in there. So we bring the oil in, we put it on the racks if we can. It gets a little bit of overflow sometimes here, but actually we're keeping it pretty neat. So it's just kind of up to whoever's brewing how they want to keep it. Yeah.
What do you do with the schmutz in the cubies afterwards?
So we actually talked to this company that's been very aggressive about the oil, of what we could do with our reject oil, and they said they would take it. So I have a friend who works for them. He said, yeah, just dump it in one of our barrels. So we're pretty picky about our oil. If we pick up a carboy oil and there's like a big layer of creamy stuff, we don't pour the creamy stuff into the machine. And so we just label it bad, and or reject, and we just dump that in one of Standard's barrels. Yeah.
A couple of questions. Do you titrate the oil each time? You were talking about people collecting from restaurants. Do the same people collect from the same restaurants? Like, does each of the members have sort of their own
Yes.
restaurants? Or do
Yes.
you have, restaurants will give to the co-op and different people pick up depending on scheduling and so on.
No, each person has one or more specific restaurants that they pick up from on a routine basis. And then, yes, we do titrate the oil. We titrate the batch, but the first time somebody brings oil in from a certain restaurant, we titrate it just to get a sense of how good or bad that particular restaurant's oil is. We find that it doesn't really change that much. And we're pretty picky, as I said. Oil that titrates real high, we may use some of it, but generally when we titrate our oil at the batch, it titrates like anywhere between 2 and 4. So it's pretty nice oil.
What's your guideline then as far as a restaurant? If you went out and titrated the oil at a restaurant, what are you looking for?
If it titrates above 5, then we usually ask them to try to find a different restaurant. So,
Have you had to fire restaurants?
yeah, there's a couple restaurants that we ask the guy to move on to a different, try to find a better one. Usually the ones that titrate higher are like 8 or 9. We could use some of that oil, but it usually tended to be pretty thick, had like a creamy layer in the bottom, and we weren't so excited about that oil. We just kind of know from experience that we'll save ourselves headaches if we use better quality oil. Yeah.
I'm going to suggest the audience that we actually let you do your presentation and then ask some questions in a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, that could work. I mean, I can try to do mostly just the presentation and take a couple questions. So just when we bring the oil in, the brewmeister pours it into the machine. We actually found that a dryer screen works incredibly well for the filtering. I know some people pour it through one of these drum filters into a drum and then pump it into the machine, but we just dump it in one container at a time through it's just a lint filter from a dryer. It covers the rectangular opening really well. So we pour it in. We usually dry the oil in the machine for at least overnight. So it has a fill line that's 50 gallons. We fill it up a few inches above that, so maybe 5 inches above that, and turn on the heater switch overnight to dry the oil. So the water will either evaporate out through the opening or it'll go to the bottom and we'll drain out those 5 gallons. And then if we want to dry it more, we can turn on the mixing motor to dry it for a few hours if we have time. Otherwise, we'll just start adding chemicals and get it going. So, another nice thing about the machine. So the BioPro uses this acid-base method, which has a couple of really nice advantages in this processor. For one thing, it kind of levels all the oil out to a very low free fatty acid level because the acid step esterifies the free fatty acids into biodiesel instead of making them into soap. And you still need to do a washing step, but you don't have nearly as much soap created. So as soon as you drain the glycerin, you can immediately hit it with a good hard wash without the danger of emulsification. Whereas I know at home, if I do that with my apple seed, I start washing right away. I usually have problems with emulsification, so I usually let it sit for a couple days before I try washing. It also allows you to use the same amount of potassium hydroxide every time, so it's always 2,350 grams of potassium hydroxide. So,
How does it do that?
Because
Titration is, you always use the same?
right, no matter what the titration is, theoretically, as long as it's below around 8 or 9, you can always use the same amount of KOH. In practice, actually, we found that if a batch, we have had an occasional rare batch that titrates at like 5 or so, and we found that the fuel we make from that tends to not be as good as fuel that we make from oil that titrates at 2. So what we do in those cases, if it titrates at 5, we add another 100 grams of potassium hydroxide. So it's a little bit of a dance, but generally speaking, we always use the same amount. Normally, you have to titrate in order to determine how much KOH you add, but in this case, the 2350 usually is the right amount and gives us good quality fuel.
You're using the acid every time?
Yeah, we use the acid every time. So anyway, it's got 2 ports. You add the KOH in the bigger port, and then you add methanol in both ports. This port gets 4 gallons of methanol, and this one gets 6. It's got a sight glass, so you just fill it up to till the sight glass is half full. And then push the, so there he is adding the methanol. These are actually supposed to be little videos, but we don't really need to show that.
Are they supposed to be wearing long sleeves?
Yeah, probably. Especially in the summer when you start getting sweaty. But yeah, I do. At least I have my goggles
You have a
on.
sink nearby, right?
What's that?
You have a sink nearby.
Yeah, we have a sink nearby.
Hey, we want to see the videos.
Okay, well, I may have to come back to that. Let me just go through the basic thing, and I'll just show a couple of quick little videos. So, filling up the methanol ports so the sight glasses are half full, and then the fun part, push the start button, and then what it does is it starts mixing in the methanol from the smaller tank, the 4 gallons, and then you add the sulfuric acid to this port on the front, or sort of the side of the machine. And so then for the next 6 hours, it's doing this esterification reaction where it's converting the free fatty acids into biodiesel instead of soap. So you also, another nice thing is you get a better yield of biodiesel because you're not only producing it from the oil, you're also producing it from the free fatty acids. So we probably get back around 48 gallons of biodiesel from 50 gallons of oil, which I find is a much better yield than I get from my apple seed. So then you walk away for, they say 24 hours, but we found you can actually come back in 16 hours and drain the glycerin. So we usually get about 11 gallons, you can just barely see. There's gallon markers here. So you get about 11 gallons of glycerin, drain that out. We drain it into the QBs that the restaurants give us. And then you can just start the wash right away. It does a mist wash from the top, does 3 mist washes, and spits out the water automatically into the sink, and then goes into a drying process. So it's almost exactly 24 hours after you start the wash that the fuel is completely done and ready to pump.
So you only have to do 3 washes. This machine only does 3 washes.
Yeah.
And it tests the pH for you?
It doesn't test the pH, it just does 3 washes, and if you want to, test the soap content or pH,
You
you can.
personally tested it afterwards, check the machine and see?
We don't test pH or do a soap test, we just do a 327 test afterwards to make sure that we're getting decent quality conversion, or decent quality fuel, good conversion.
Wow.
So, yeah.
With the washing, how does it know exactly how much to drain out? Is it just water in and then water out? Does it meter that? Do you
It's
know?
got some kind of sensor in it. Mark, do you know? Can you tell? Can you reveal? Mark is the,
It's a specific gravity flow switch,
Okay.
which basically tracks how much water is in, and therefore hopefully gets rid of just the water and not your body.
And it works pretty much all the time.
We try and architect this will work all the time. They're pretty good switches. They don't fail that often, but if they do, it's pretty obvious that they have.
you what?
I have 4 BioPros and I've never had any problems with my water out switches.
Great.
Wow, how much water per batch?
It's, I think it's 12, well, it uses like about 40 gallons per whole batch, like 12
40
gallons
gallons
per
of
water.
water?
40 gallons of water, 12 gallons or so each wash.
Lyle, you mentioned the fire department issued a methanol permit.
Uh-huh.
Do they say anything about your waste methanol?
You mean the one, like, that's going down the drain, or?
No, that's going into the glycerin.
No, because we are disposing of that by having it, taking it to a company that will take it. So they actually didn't say anything about having the glycerin in the totes.
So your glycerin's hauled away by a hazmat group?
What's that?
Your glycerin's hauled away by a hazmat group?
No, it's not all the way. We take it to a company that will take it for us, so they'll pick it up.
In your personal car.
We have a guy with a truck that takes it.
A pickup truck.
It's a box truck with a lift gate on it, so, yeah, I mean, he doesn't have a hazardous, whatever, transport permit, so he is, as I said, we're not totally above it. We're not even, really what we're doing is kind of an experiment. So the guy who owns the building is going to demolish the building and build these like artist loft apartments and stuff, and he's thinking of incorporating our co-op into that. So if we do that, we're going to probably go to a more legit type of structure. Right. But for now, we're just sort of developing it and seeing what the issues are and the pros and cons and all that. Yeah.
I missed some of what just went on. There's about pro people trying to develop or move away from water wash, demethylating and resin polishing.
Yeah, we are ultimately going to try and do that. I don't know if I asked that question, but that's our goal. It's on the drawing board, and we're actually working on that right now. We don't have anything today.
It's working on it.
Working on it.
That's a good answer.
So Mark is the owner of Springboard Biodiesel, which is now making the biodiesel.
The other question was methanol recovery to change for so much.
So much for doing the presentation. Can I finish, and then we'll take a bunch of more questions. So it's not going to be long. So here we are. We've put our finished fuel into these 70-gallon aluminum cans, which actually the fire department wasn't so excited about these. They'd rather us use steel, but we had these from a previous little biodiesel co-op. So we have 2 of them. So we keep the full one in the bathroom for people to crank fuel into their car, and the other one in the shop where we can fill it up. We just have a hand crank pump on it, so people get to do a little work when they fuel up their car. And we took on a few more members than we probably should have, so we limit people to 8 gallons at a fill up, just so there's enough for everyone else. And that's really helped, because for a while we were struggling to keep up with the demand. I think that's, there's our first test of the total glycerin, so 0.12 is pretty happy with that, very happy with that. And so except for the videos, I can take questions. How do I get the mouse to work? It's over the screen. Anyway, hey Grady.
Yeah, videos.
Can you get me out of this? Okay, I'll take some questions. Paul?
Well, what's the fire department's take, and how are you dispensing methanol to the machine? Are you using steel drums, and if so, what kind of pump and what kind of tubing, and what do they say about it?
We use, standard metal steel drums that the methanol comes in. We have one of these Ryton pumps. It's only a $50 pump from Northern Tool, but supposedly methanol compatible. Works great. We pump it. It's kind of nice because when the pump is in the drum, the nozzle just goes right into the port on the side of the machine, so it fits really well. Yeah.
Why was the fire department concerned about aluminum when biodiesel is, chemically so much safer than gasoline or regular diesel?
I can't
really.
really.
In plastic.
Yeah.
And I worry about the methanol, but I don't. And the glycerol, keep that in metal.
Yeah.
But, I mean.
I can't really explain it. I mean, the fire department has weird ideas.
Not melon maybe, or?
Yeah. Well, I want the temperature of the metal for compromises. I want aluminum may have a lower.
Probably melts at a lower temperature. So let's do one at a time so we can hear each other. Brad, you wanted to finish what you were saying?
Are you moving the aluminum container full one and you're relocating it to the repository and going back and forth?
Yeah.
That may be the issue, because I know things I built with aluminum, I mean, not biodiesel specific at all, but like boats and things like that, is aluminum has tendency, if you get flexing in it, it will develop cracks, and they may be concerned about leakage. That's just me speculating.
Yeah, I don't know. Any you forget your name?
Yeah.
What sort of place takes the glycerin?
So actually the company that's been really aggressively going after the oil was taking our glycerin for a while. Now they're getting into this renewable diesel stuff, so they're not going to take our glycerin. Then we found another company up a couple hours north, So we're taking it to them, another biodiesel company. And then now we're talking to a cement company. They already are burning things like old tires, so they may be able to burn it. I take some of the glycerin home from the co-op, and I have a little still in my garage at home, and I do recover some of the methanol out of it, but we haven't used any of the recovered methanol in the biocrop. So we're still looking on better ways to dispose of the glycerin. Yeah, Frankie.
What happens to your wash water from washing the biodiesel?
Goes down the drain, and I talked to the sewage treatment folks, and they thought it was okay. They said it really, they didn't think it had anything in it that wasn't what a lot of people are putting down the drain. They weren't worried about it. They said even actually they would take the glycerin. They said that the glycerin, can be like as a feedstock for the bacteria, but they're not set up to accept anything from the public. So, and they didn't want us to put it down the drain because there's volatility, because there's methanol in there. So that's what we're doing with the wash water. Well, if we go to another